Okay, I'm going to get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our December 11th meeting of the Bay Area EV Coordinating Council. My name is Wendy Cho. I'm a senior manager with Actera, Action for a Healthy Planet. Um, the EV Council meets quarterly to review different topics in the EV space with different stakeholders. The facilitator of these meetings is Actera along with Cool to Earth. And these meetings are co-hosted by the Bay Area Air District and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. So welcome, and we'll get into our agenda. If this is your first EV Council meeting, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. You can also rename yourself if you hit the participants, and under your name, there's three dots, and you should be able to rename yourself. So we are talking today about transitioning municipal fleets. It's a very important issue. It's one that combines a lot of different disciplines, and whether you are in your beginning stages with planning or if you have implementation in progress, boots on the ground, we have some invited panelists who are experts today sharing their important insights on electrifying fleets. And we will also invite you to join our discussion in the Q&A. We will also have an overview of the 2025 Charging Smart Bay Area cohort, which has just concluded, and we will be congratulating the many different jurisdictions that participated and achieved designations in this program. So this program was an innovative peer learning forum for Bay Area jurisdictions to make progress on their EV goals in terms of both their charging infrastructure as well as their planning and regulations. So we're really excited to talk about that today. We will also have a big announcement about what's happening to EV Council in 2026 and a survey for you to fill out, followed by our roundtable announcements. And if you ever have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. All right, so let's give a little overview of our fleets topic for today. We will be looking at best practices and resources for municipalities in their transition to electric fleets, including light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. If you have questions, we'd like to take those definitely, but please hold them until all of the panelists have presented, and then we will have a Q&A session, and I will be the moderator for that. So we are going to begin with our panel on transitioning municipal fleets. We are welcoming three wonderful guests: Natalie Hanson from Optony, Youran Kim from PG&E, and Richard Battersby from Oakland Public Works. We're so excited to have them with us today. And our first panelist will be Natalie Hanson. She is the Director of Energy Programs at Optony, where she leads a team that develops strategies and tools to advance decarbonization in the transportation sector. In this role, she oversees Optony's work with California's CCAs and regional partners, guiding clients through fleet electrification assessments, charging infrastructure planning and design to set projects up for construction. She holds an MS in civil engineering from the University of Alaska Anchorage. And Natalie, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Wendy, and thanks everyone for being here today. I'm going to be on a time crunch, so I have a lot of information to deliver in a short amount of time. So I'm happy to answer questions. If I have to, kind of gloss over something toward the end, please just ask for more details in the chat, and I'm happy to provide a response to those. So as Wendy mentioned, I work for a firm called Optony. Our team has completed more than 50 municipal fleet electrification plans across California, most of which were in the last 4 years or so. So today I'm sharing the patterns that we are seeing across a lot of those projects, what actually drives success and what consistently causes these projects to slow or even fail in worst case scenarios. My goal for today is to give you some practical, usable takeaways that you can bring back to your projects if you're a public agency, or your clients if you're providing services to folks. Next slide, please. So many of the reasons that you'll see on this slide are probably going to be familiar to you. We're just talking about why projects stall, or like I said, sometimes even fail. Um, we are drawing from our actual experiences. So I've seen countless public agency staff with limited bandwidth trying to juggle this unfamiliar project that they've never built before on top of their day-to-day responsibilities. We've seen a lot of events where confusing or conflicting information about regulations are published, whether that's well-intentioned or not. It still is confusing to folks. And then regularly we're running up against long supply chain and construction timelines that are a hindrance to progress. Next slide, please. So that's all to say that not all EV transition hurdles are technical. Organizations stumble without careful planning and support needed across all of the aspects: funding, procurement, the development of a project over a long timeline. The good news here is that these are now, we've done this enough times, they're predictable. We can kind of anticipate them ahead of time, and so we can plan for them. Next slide. So lesson number one is to right size your EV charging. In municipal EV charging projects, it's extremely common for agencies to oversize charging infrastructure, not on purpose, but because they assume every EV needs its own dedicated charger, or they plan charging around the vehicle battery size as opposed to the actual use of the vehicle. A lot of agencies also just kind of default to installing higher power chargers as a just in case, kind of a worst case scenario measure, which will drive up project costs and often triggers avoidable utility upgrades. So what we found is when you right size based on real usage, like the mileage driven, the parking patterns, duty cycles, and you actually crunch the numbers, you avoid installing more chargers than the fleet actually needs. More charging isn't automatically better. I think most of you know that. It often is going to lead to higher cost project, additional electrical work, and more complexity without necessarily delivering operational value. Next slide. I might get some heat for this one, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Most municipal fleets have long, predictable dwell times. We're talking 12 to 14 hours of time to charge overnight, which means that level one or level two overnight charging is sufficient for the majority of vehicles. Think about aspects like pool car or use cases like pool cars or admin vehicles. They can use level two, but often that they could get away with level one. So we don't want to see folks delaying or holding off on electrifying some low mileage vehicles in the fleet just because there isn't a level two readily available. Level one can often get the job done, especially as some sort of interim or bridge solution to installing more infrastructure later. We're seeing that routine daily use vehicles in like the streets or building inspectors or parking enforcement, that level two charging works extremely well and supports most duty cycles. Those don't even usually trigger the need for a level three charger, a DC fast charger. The main exception here, of course, is emergency response. A lot of these lessons that I'm going to share are not considering emergency response because I treat that as an entirely different kind of realm of vehicles. But emergency response does indeed require faster charging options and built-in redundancy. Next slide, please. One of the biggest cost drivers we're seeing is defaulting to DC fast chargers just because it feels like the safe option. In reality, high-powered fast charging is rarely needed for municipal fleets. Most city vehicles don't have the mileage, the turnaround, the kind of shift turnaround cycles, or even the duty cycle that justifies that level of power, that speed of charging. Fast charging comes with trade-offs. It's significantly more expensive than level two charging. It can require much larger electrical capacity, almost always triggering utility service upgrades, which can add months to your schedule and tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost. And then on top of that, there's a battery health consideration. Fast charging has a role in vehicle electrification, but it's not something you want to do as your everyday charging method if you don't need it. Level two charging, which is AC powered charging, that is gentler on batteries and helps to preserve long-term performance as opposed to routinely using DC fast charging. For the majority of municipal operations, we're seeing that level 2 overnight charging is more than adequate. Save those DC fast chargers for long, intensive duty cycles or emergency response scenarios where rapid turnaround is essential. You're going to see projects that can get unstuck and over the finish line more often. Next slide, please. The city of San Carlos is a great real world example of how right sizing can save money without sacrificing operations. So we started working with the city a couple of years ago, and they had purchased 5 F-150 Lightnings, and they were received 5 level 2 chargers with those vehicle purchases. That looks on surface like a very simple one-to-one setup, but we were concerned about the space constraints that they had when we modeled their real. And so when we modeled their real driving behavior, looking at their daily mileage, the parking patterns, duty cycles of each individual vehicle, we found that those same 5 chargers could support up to 17 F-150 Lightnings on that same cycle. So that just tells us that they had a lot more time to spare before they needed to install additional charging infrastructure. Most of those vehicles just needed to plug in a few hours or maybe overnight once per week, and that was sufficient to support their operations. By basing this project on real data rather than some generic assumptions, the city avoided installing additional chargers and eliminated the need for a service upgrade. Next slide, please. Lesson number 2, that was only one lesson. Lesson number 2 is to plan ahead. Fleet electrification is not something that you're doing all at once. It's a phased transition. You all know that. But the agencies that we see are most successful are the ones that are planning several years ahead and aligning their electrification work with budget cycles, grant opportunities, and utility timelines. Planning ahead gives you control of the process rather than reacting to it. It lets you time infrastructure upgrades with vehicle procurement, prepare competitive grant applications, and avoid last-minute surprises. At this timeline, the timeline on the right kind of gives us a general sense of the flow of a lot of projects that are regarding a lot of EV charging projects on the fleet side of things. We see that the utility process alone can take 12 to 24 months. So when you understand that these projects kind of run in parallel with each other, you can get ahead of those long lead times. Next slide, please. A long-range roadmap is one of the most valuable tools an agency can have when electrifying their fleet. When you take the time to map out the next 5 to 10 years, you can align those vehicle replacements with charging infrastructure for phases of charging infrastructure. You can also ensure that you're complying with any regulations like advanced clean fleets, as opposed to treating every charger install or vehicle procurement project like it's standalone, kind of a standalone effort. You build this into a bigger picture process. The roadmap can also give visibility into when other departments are transitioning, how many chargers each site will eventually need, and where the biggest infrastructure investments should be made first. It gives you the space to pursue grants strategically, budgeting ahead for upgrades, and then coordinating with your utility early and often. I'm going to get to that point in a second. Next slide, please. I think probably everyone on this call knows the benefits of long-term and early planning, kind of thinking, what are we doing in 10 years? What are we doing in 15 years? It allows you, when you prepare that way, it allows you to move when opportunities arise. Grant opportunities open and close quickly. They're not always predictable. And budgets change and contractors have limited availability. So kind of putting all these pieces together helps to be able to move on a grant application when the opportunity comes up. So think about how often we see grant applications for a shovel-ready project, and my phone starts ringing because everybody needs site assessments or designs before the grant window closes. So I'm just really think ahead. Where are we headed as far as EV charging infrastructure? Where do we have the biggest need? And let's get prepared for future grant applications or opportunities now. And then finally, good planning helps you to avoid procurement delays because you already know what equipment you need, what the scope looks like, which sites need to move forward, and you've kind of got all of your pieces in place and are ready to move as soon as funding comes available. Next slide, please. Lesson 3 is to keep projects simple. Fleet charging projects get complicated fast when public access is added. The moment a site is open to the public, you trigger extra civil work, new metering, signage, lighting, operational requirements that fleet-only sites don't have to deal with. So if we're talking exclusively how to get municipal fleets to meet their electrification goals or stay in compliance with advanced clean fleets, we need to keep projects simple. Unless there's a clear policy directive or revenue justification, we suggest keeping the fleet charging for the fleet and then public charging for public. Next slide, please. Here we are. Engage your project partners as early as you possibly can. Utility coordination is almost always the pacing item in EV charging projects. In many cases, the utility's timeline exceeds the other parts of the project. I already said this, 12 to 24 months is often what we're seeing for utility timelines. So if you wait too long, the entire project is going to slip. So that's why utilities should be involved at the conceptual design phase. Early conversations help set realistic expectations about capacity, the available service you have at your site, and whether you're going to need an upgrade. Most agencies also don't realize that there are free programs available to help. So I think Youran is going to talk about the PG&E Fleet Advisory Services Program, but I also just want to make a general plug for utility and CCA programs around the Bay Area that provide fleet electrification planning support, conceptual designs, rate analyses, things like that at often no cost. So talk to your local CCA or utility to get information about that. Using those resources early saves staff time, of course, and reduces design uncertainty. When you identify upgrade requirements up front, whether that's your transformer, a panel change, new service, et cetera, you avoid months of rework that if you wait too long, you're going to be going back doing, kind of redesigning the entire effort. Next slide, please. Okay, to close it out, I just wanted to kind of hammer this home. The 4 lessons that I wanted to share today are right size your charging infrastructure, plan ahead to align with your budget cycles, grants, and utility timelines. Keep your project simple. People are going to hear, oh, we're putting in EV chargers. Cool, let's add staff charging. Cool, let's add public charging. And it's really important to try to keep that boundary unless there's a significant demand for it. And then finally, engage your utility and CCA early to avoid surprises and accelerate delivery. Next slide, I think, is my closing. There we go. We'll
Thank you,
take questions
Natalie.
after.
Thank you so much for providing that very clear description of the principles that people should be abiding by. Um, all right, we're going to move right along to our next speaker. Youran Kim is an EV customer advisor expert at PG&E, specializing in fleet electrification and clean transportation strategies. With a background in account management and energy solutions, Youran holds a master's in project management from Georgetown and a BS in economics from the University of Washington. And please take it away, Youran.
Good morning, and I love how the speak group kind of flows because Natalie, thank you so much. It is very, very important to engage with utility folks. So I'm going to talk about our free, yes, I said free, no cost program that you guys can take advantage of when you are starting your fleet electrification journey. So please stay with me and I'll share some information about our program and how you can take advantage of us. So thank you. So our program, I will repeat that one more time, is no cost to customers. And we offer a personalized and guidance through your EV fleet electrification journey. And this program helps medium and heavy duty fleets to a EV conversion. And applications are open through 2026. And again, it's more like a white glove tailored advisory service that we provide. Next slide, please. So electrifying fleets can be very challenging, as you all know, and in many organizations lack in-house expertise and face complex decision making, and worry about utility process or the cost. So our advisors can simplify this process by providing education and acting as your utility liaison, and help you estimate total cost of ownership while identifying other funding opportunities. Next slide, please. The journey to electrification involves several phases, from initiation and planning to site construction and operational optimization. And we'll walk you through each step, including funding browsing and vendor selection, site design, and eventual expansion. So when you see this different phases, and even if you are finding yourself either in a project underway, making a plan, wherever you see yourself, please let us know, and then we'll find a way to provide support for you. Next slide, please. So again, wherever you are, like in your journey, we can provide different education, analysis, and possible like hands-on support to make sure your electrification project is running smoothly. And we all know it is very notorious for utility processes could be very cumbersome, complex, and it is good. I mean, we get this feedback all the time. It is good to have someone, like a person, right, instead of 1-800 number or a chatbot. But you can contact, once you're part of this program, you're going to have a designated advisor like myself that you can just call up or text, email, if you do need some kind of advice, or like, hey, I need to contact so and so person or department, can you help me? We can also provide that help as well. So please utilize our program. Next slide, please. So eligibility requirements, it's not that complicated though. So there is a basic and a full eligibility. So to participate, you must be a PG&E commercial electric customer operating at least one medium or heavy duty vehicle. And our program policy, medium duty includes like Ford F-150 or Chevy Silverado. 6,000 gross weight is going to get you qualified as a medium fleet, and agree to the program terms and conditions. And the full eligibility includes schools, transit agencies, municipalities, and small businesses, especially those in underserved communities. So if you do have questions, whether you are in underserved community or not, please reach out to me. We can get that cleared up for you as well. So this is a list of services we provide, and we provide a range of services tailored to your needs, from a fleet electrification 101, capacity checks, to like rate optimizations and resiliency guidance. So the services with asterisks at the end, the bolded ones, are available to all eligible customers, the basic eligibility, while the full list, including the non-bolded ones, are only offered to the full eligible customers. So among here, the most popular services based on my experience so far is the basic capacity check. So when customers want to see, like, do we even have enough capacity, electricity to install chargers? That is a good service, good place to start. And it will, pinpoint your site address and then check a preliminary capacity check. And then once you kind of going into more of a making a plan phase, we'll do some more deep dive into like site reviews, where our engineer will come on, and then we'll do some optimal charger locations based on, where the circuit is located. So the best way to pull the additional electricity and whatnot. So we're here to help you make the planning as easy as possible. Next slide, please. So the getting started is quite easy. You can submit your application, or we call it pretty much interest form. We try to make it as simple and least number of clicks possible. So again, you can opt out at any given time if you don't feel that, okay, we don't really need that service anymore. There is nothing that will stop you, or, you know, oh, you have to complete XYZ to opt out, right? So it's no cost to you. There is no obligation, and you can opt in and out at any given time. So please complete the eligibility check. And then, you know, once you submit that interest form, our team, the advisor, is going to reach out to you to set up an intro call. And then we'll assess your needs, present the service options, and then we'll get going with the delivering the services and figure out the support you need. So next, I wanted to point out about our really popular program. It is called Rule 29, and we're working on a better name and a marketing that's coming up, but we are currently calling that a Rule 29. And what it is we provide the infrastructure upgrade side of things, and that would be paid by PG&E. However, there are some engineering advance and application kind of costs that's involved. So it's not 100% no cost to customers, but we cover like 98% of the entire infrastructure upgrade. So if you could, Wendy, could you go to the next page? It's easier for the diagram. So you see the blue section that's coming from our like pole line to a transformer and up to your meter. That side of like infrastructure will be owned, operated, and maintained by PG&E under the Rule 29. But the right side, where green section, is from your meter to the panel up to the charging stations. That's going to be customer side infrastructure, where you would be taking care of the cost and the construction side of things. So for you to be eligible for Rule 29, you must have a plan to purchase, install a qualified EV charging stations, and then maintain and operate them for at least 5 years. And usually that's really not even a, you know, eligibility that you have to be mindful for customers who are planning on installing chargers. So it's very rare to see customers who won't qualify, but we will, again, the advisors will walk you through that and make sure you know whether you qualify or not. I believe this might be the last slide, right? Yeah. So just wanted to reiterate that there is a programs like Rule 29. There are different other ones that also help you we also have a different rules and programs that will help you pay for some portion of the infrastructure, but Rule 29 really is the golden program right now, where like almost 98%, you know, of that infrastructure upgrade cost is going to be covered when you are looking at installing level 3 DC fast chargers, or like 30 banks of level 2 chargers. It will definitely going to need that infrastructure side of upgrade. So it is a really good program, popular program right now that customers are utilizing. So please let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out to me. That is my email address, and this slide will be shared with you. So yeah, we are here to serve our customers, and I really do hope you end up utilizing our service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Youran. That was a wonderful overview of what services you offer, and it's very exciting that you have the new program. So we'll look forward to more developments in that area. All right, I'm going to call up now our final panelist, Richard Battersby from Oakland Public Works, where he is the assistant director. He has over 30 years of experience in the fleet industry and 25 years in alternative fuel vehicles, including implementation of some of the first alternative fuel vehicle programs in California. and he is responsible for fielding over 3,000 of those vehicles and also designing and constructing numerous alternative fuel and EV charging stations in the state and holds multiple master technician certifications. Welcome, Richard, and please take it away.
Thanks, Wendy. I'm Richard Battersby. As you mentioned, I'm the Assistant Director of Oakland Public Works, which puts fleet under my purview, and also facilities, which helps when you're conducting these electrification projects. But in my spare time, I'm also the director of the East Bay Clean Cities Coalition, and I've been doing that for 23 years now. And even with the federal uncertainty, East Bay Clean Cities, we're a 501c3, so we don't necessarily rely on federal funding. We're still out there if anybody asks that question. But back to the city of Oakland, we are the 8th largest city in California, population about 450,000. We've got 1,800 vehicles, and we started electrifying vehicles back in 2014 before the mandates hit. We started with 4 Nissan Leafs and 6 L2 charge ports. Currently, we've got over 120 plug-in vehicles. Actually, I think it's almost 140 now. We got 87 level 2 charging ports, 2 DC fast chargers, and we have 4 of the Beam solar EV arcs. So in that approximately 10-year period, we've made a lot of progress. I'm just going to go over some highlights. But that photo there with the intersection of Electric Avenue and Hydrogen Highway, dated 2018. I had the ability to make that because we do have sign shops here at the city of Oakland, but this is a great conversation starter, because when you talk about zero emission vehicles, that's where the choice was in 2018. There, folks were actually wondering, is it going to be electricity? Does hydrogen win? Well, the short answer is electricity is much more prevalent, so they can be perceived as the winner, but hydrogen is still growing and maturing, and it makes sense in some applications. We do have some hydrogen vehicles, but obviously I'm here to talk about the electrification efforts. Next slide, please. Everybody out here knows where Oakland is. I put this slide together for folks who aren't necessarily in California. One of the biggest takeaways here is we have a lot of internal staff to support our vehicles, 45 mechanics. We're trying to train all of our mechanics to perform repair and maintenance on our electric vehicles in-house. And also me being over facilities, I have electricians on staff. We're hoping to get them trained and accepted by some of our EVSE manufacturers to also do maintenance and support, because that is a big problem when you're operating your own charging network. When a piece of equipment, charging equipment, goes down for a relatively minor affair, you really need it fixed quickly. Next slide, please. This is our 2025 fleet composition. You see the numbers are slightly different from that 1,800 ballpark figure I put on the front slide. It all depends on what you're counting. We got a bunch of stuff with wheels on it and motors. We call those motorized, and then we have trailers and other non-motorized equipment. Some of it's capable of being electrified. There's our fleet count right there. Currently, you can see we use a broad spectrum of alternative fuels that are available out there. We use a little bit of something, except for liquefied natural gas, and that's just because of the specialized infrastructure. Right now, the percentage of our fleet that's running on an alternative low carbon renewable fuel is 58%. We're pretty happy with that, especially considering the police fleet is a large component of the fleet, and we are actually starting to electrify patrol vehicles. So we're going to get there. Next slide, please. There's my favorite intersection sign. I just put up a little chart that shows when you're talking about zero emission, we can actually do better than zero emission when we use renewable natural gas. And some of the new renewable diesel feedstocks that are coming out are in the low 200 to 300 range, and that's not a typo. So it all depends on what the feedstock is that you're using. I would suggest to those on this call, don't limit yourself to battery electric and hydrogen, even though that's what the Air Resources Board Advanced Clean Fleet Rule mandate accommodates. I think we're going to see some movement. allowing some of these negative carbon intensity fuels. So stay tuned for that. And on the upper right, it's just a little graphic of our circular economy that we've got set up for our renewable diesel. And that's where we've coordinated with waste grease consolidators to pick up waste grease and oil to be used as feedstock for renewable diesel. They pick it up in Oakland. It goes back in the vehicle that's empty, or the vessel. Some of the stuff comes from overseas. Normally it would go back empty. It goes back with feedstock. And we actually turn the used oil and waste grease from the city of Oakland into renewable diesel that comes back to Oakland and runs in our vehicles. So it's kind of a term you'll probably hear more often. It's a fancy term for closed loop, but circular economy is definitely the way to go. Next slide, please. And this just shows on a pie chart the dramatic effect made by implementing renewable diesel. You can see on the little slice there in dark blue is natural gas, which is renewable natural gas. And we don't really have electricity measured on here or hydrogen. They're rather small slices, but they're becoming more significant. And the light blue represents overnight how much we increased our renewable fuel usage just by switching to renewable diesel. Next slide. And the red, that was before renewable diesel. So if you're not using renewable diesel in your diesel powered vehicles as you work through this transition, you should. I think most folks in the Bay Area already know about that option, and renewable diesel is available retail on darn near every street corner now. So anyway, we're not talking about renewable diesel here. Next slide. Some of our successes along our electrification journey, tips, hurdles, barriers, whatever. We've had some successes and we've made some mistakes and we've learned from them. If you're out there just now considering, look, even though the advanced clean fleet rule is talking about medium heavy duty, doing your light duty fleet is so much simpler. You will find the return on investment, your total cost of operation of light duty battery electric. That's going to pencil out when you talk about the reduced maintenance and the lower cost of fuel. I'm not so sure that that model is accurate for medium and heavy duty yet because of the super high incremental cost. They're much more expensive to buy, but we're looking at it. We do fleet, workplace, and public EV charging. Your best location is where you can have fleet charging and you switch off with employee charging during the day. You can bring your fleet vehicles outside the fence, charge them overnight, let your employees charge during the day. We definitely took advantage of some of the programs that were mentioned here. You'll be happy to know we did do the PG&E Fleet Advisory Service. We're part of the EV Fleet Grant Program. Also, the MTC Fleet Electrification Strategy. We're taking advantage of that grant. We use the Air Resources Board Hybrid Vehicle Incentive Program. We were lucky enough to get some funding from the EPA Medium and Heavy Duty Program, and we got like 11 different grants. We got 4 that we're working on. It's just a matter of going out and being prepared. You got to have your background documents in order. If you've got some planning documents, especially if you have lease properties, get your approval letters from the property owner first, have an electricity assessment done first, and that helps you. It's as close as you can get to being shovel ready. Know what your fleet composition is, know where you park the vehicles. If you're in California, you already had to submit a I forget what ARB called the fleet, but it's basically a report on the types of vehicles you have, where they're parked, what they're used for, how long you operate them. This is like the large fleet report or something like that. Just real briefly, some of the challenges, and then I'll wrap it up for questions. I want to talk about challenges. So folks out there, if you're running into problems, don't feel like you're the only one. We're running into those same problems. Looking back on it, L2 or L1 is actually adequate for the majority of the charging on light duty. Looking at our vehicle use, L2 is probably overkill. The vehicles are parked overnight. So you can save a lot of money if you could install L1 instead. We still have problems finding the vehicles. Medium heavy duty, some of the grants that we've applied for require us to have X number of medium and heavy duty battery electric vehicles. We don't have them yet, so we've had to request waivers, but we keep hearing they're on the way. We're trying some street sweepers and a battery electric refuse truck. We just got a couple of our first stake bed, like medium heavy duty. I think they're about 14,000 GVW. Having power, the electricity available is a big roadblock at this point. Roadblock's not a good word. Time delay. What previously was like an 18-month process, if you need to get additional power at your location, now it's probably like 24 to 36 months when you go to your utility, because every fleet in California is trying to upgrade electricity to their facilities. A lot of non-fleet customers talking about AI and data banks, and you got all of these other applications that need more power. We're all competing for a limited number of resources. The utilities can only do so much so quickly. So build that into your plans. And, you know, with that, I think I'm probably at 10 minutes. Oh, I went 11 minutes. So Wendy, yeah, I was hoping the Q&A would be inspired by some of the stuff we've thrown out there. Everybody knows about the advanced clean fleet rule. On the next slide. Everybody knows what electric vehicle charging looks like. We have some of those beam EV arcs. Please consider these. You don't have to trench. You don't have to upgrade your power. You can move them if you think they're in the wrong place, and you can move them in time of emergency. We used EV arcs to power COVID testing clinics and inoculation clinics during COVID-19. Next slide, please. And anyway, let's talk about potential solutions on the next meeting. There's some really interesting technology out there, turnkey, the battery storage, solar, all of that incorporated. There's also mobile or temporary charging solutions that may or may not run off the grid. You can get them powered by propane, renewable propane, hydrogen, you name it. So just because you can't get your power out at your facility, don't think that you don't have any options. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is I hear people talk about it's chicken and the egg when you talk about electric vehicles and charging. No, it absolutely is not chicken and the egg. Get your chargers in first. I say this because you can operate an electric vehicle charger without an electric vehicle, but you cannot operate your electric vehicle without that charger. So get to work on your chargers now, even if your vehicles aren't planned to arrive for a year or two. And with that, let's go back to the general topic of discussion. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Richard. Wonderful. So yeah, we've got a lot to think about. I'm going to ask all of our panelists to come back on, and this is a great chance for people to ask questions, and also, if you want to, share your own experience in your municipality with planning, managing, or implementing electric fleet transitions. And I'm going to stop the share so that we can see everybody, actually. Can you all see each other, or should I remove the spotlights? What do you think? I know what it looks like from my angle. Is this okay?
Yeah, we see the four
Okay,
of
great.
you. Yeah.
All right. So does anyone have a question? Feel free to raise your hand, or you could pop it in the chat. I do see one question from Jack, who would like to know, Richard, of your city vehicle purchases, how many of them, like percentage-wise, are EVs, your new purchases?
Well, when it comes to the medium heavy duty, we're adhering to the advanced clean fleet rule, which is 50%. Currently, it's ratcheting up. So for every diesel vehicle we buy one battery electric vehicle. For the light duty stuff, our first option is you're going to buy battery electric. And if that doesn't work, if there's a reasonable justification, then we look at a plug-in hybrid. And following that, we just kind of go down the tree. Even renewable diesel used to be an option with light duty. We had a bunch of Chevy Cruzes that we bought specifically to run on renewable diesel, because when you looked at the carbon intensity, it made a lot of sense. And we still believe in natural gas. We're using renewable natural gas, running out of options with the light duty, but we still will acquire medium or heavy duty vehicle on natural gas, but we can't count that towards the advanced clean fleet rule percentage.
Thanks. Thanks for that. James, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have questions for everyone, but I'll pace myself here. So I think this could be towards Natalie and Richard. Natalie, you're talking about right sizing, so possibly reducing vehicles or thinking about chargers too. Not necessarily one charger for every EV, and then transitioning these like new technologies, new vehicles. How how do you think about addressing initial concern and resistance from the fleet managers and vehicle operators, who, like the general public thinking about EVs, like think about like the situation where they need to do a road trip, even if it only happens like once a year versus like what the daily usage is like. So I'm curious about that because also, Richard, I know you are way ahead for the city, but thinking about early sort of adoption phases or the cities that you work with through the Clean Cities Coalition.
I'm happy to speak to my strategy, and then I would love to hear Richard's perspective of 14 years of actually implementing it, and having to face the staff who say, "I can't do my job if you make me drive an EV," and you're like, "Actually, you can." So anyway, so a lot of times, if there's uncertainty or hesitation around it, we try to strip it down to something that feels a little more manageable. One is compliance with ACF, with Advanced Clean Fleet. So at a base level, we're going to tell you that that's a best practice. And then exploring EVs on top of that, we're often recommending like slow pilot projects, probably similar to some of the things that the city of Oakland has done over the years, but it's like, let's replace one vehicle in this department with an EV and let it kind of prove itself. When we're talking about fleets that are, or some of the departments that have lower mileage, that could be as simple as just having a level one, like, kind of slow trickle charge there, plug it in, it's a pool car, everyone gets that exposure. But just trying to manage those expectations but also balance it with the city's requirements. I think it's exposure. A lot of times folks are hesitant about EVs, they're skeptical, and then they experience it or they see someone else in the fleet operating just fine with an EV and they are open to it. So it's just early in the phase of acceptance.
James, did that get to your question about the maybe possible pushback about wanting faster charging, though? Is that what part of your question was about?
I mean, I think it's all of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a tendency to want fast chargers and chargers for every vehicle
Mhm.
and, every vehicle and redundancies, even if in reality, like, so it sounds like Natalie, you were talking also previously about like the data, like showing like how
Yeah.
actually used, but I know that data alone can be challenging.
The other thing that I will say is a lot of the folks that we work with that are public agencies really do have financial constraints. And so it isn't just a matter of what's my pie in the sky best case scenario. It's what can we actually afford today or a year from now. And a lot of times we make the suggestion of the data, like evidence-based recommendation for, you just need a handful of level twos. You don't need that extra DCFC that's like the just in case, or, we're going to use this every once in a while. And then you pencil, like you kind of do you crunch the numbers and they're like, well, we couldn't build anything if it was going to cost that much. We're like, okay, well, we're back to the initial, more conservative approach, which is sufficient based on, kind of our data and the modeling. So sometimes it kind of works itself out, but we're often ask that question. Well, what about in emergencies? And I that's where I want to hear from Richard on how they've actually navigated that, because I would say you're not only limited to your site, right? If there's really an emergency, there is DC fast charging the neighborhood over, or commercially available. And so if it really is this push comes to shove, like, catastrophic scenario, I don't like put the charge on your personal, like there are options. It's not like there's absolutely no infrastructure. So yeah.
Well, I can take a stab at that, James. First, I'll talk about the EV charging. We have a holistic approach to EV charging. It's the city. Being over the city fleet, I had a vested interest in deploying EV chargers just for those fleet vehicles that are in the fleet. Along the way, we realized, hey, you know what? We can put these chargers where fleet vehicles can use them and the employees can also use them. And we also have locations where fleet vehicles charge. We have workplace charging for employees. And then we also have visitors to those parking structures. And in the early days, that was a requirement of the grants that we got. We had to have so much throughput through these EV chargers. This was through the BAAQMD charge program. I neglected to mention BAAQMD because you guys helped us out a lot in the early days. And by making us monitor the throughput on those EV chargers, we learned how to maximize them. And we also learned what chargers were maybe not in exactly the right location. And we're able to take some remedial action. And we also learned what chargers were oversubscribed. We started paying attention to dwell time, where vehicles are plugged in, blocking the charger, but they're no longer charging. So we were able to improve along the way. And at the same time, our Department of Transportation that manages parking structures, they were installing charging infrastructure. So that gave us somewhat of a safety net to the extent where AVA came in and put in 15 DC fast chargers where we already had about 15 or 20 level 2 chargers. What we're finding is nobody's using the fast chargers. Most folks plug into the L2 and off they go. Excuse me. And then the other phenomenon we're seeing is fairly recently is the EV charging hubs. And that's where you have a company like Prologis or Forum Mobility comes in, and they're basically installing a service station, like a gas station, but instead of having gasoline, they have EV chargers. So we have several of those in our area. We use those as backups as well. And then, of course, we have other fleets like Alameda County is close by, the Port of Oakland. The Port of Oakland is on, they're kind of like on their own grids. So if we lose power, heaven forbid, at the city of Oakland, we have some backup emergency generators, but frankly, they're really not focused on electric vehicle charging, although it will power some. We have the ability to go over to the port and borrow, some electricity. So just think about it. You don't necessarily have to deploy all these things, but understand what options you have out there before you need it. And I'll tell you, one of our stakeholders, the city of Fairfield, they have battery electric buses, but they don't have their DC fast chargers. They have a trailer mounted DC fast charging unit that I think is fueled by renewable propane. So it's still fairly clean, but they're getting by with that till they can get their DC fast chargers in the ground. So there's ways to get there. James, your question about fleet managers and drivers is really interesting. In California, we're in a totally different environment than most of the country because we've been working with electric vehicles since the first phase in 2020 or 1999. Or I said 2020, I meant 2000 in 1999. And when I was working for State General Services at the time, and we had 5 or 6 plug-in vehicles. They were kind of new. The EV1 from GM, we had some RAV4 total battery electric, getting people accustomed to trying those out. And just about the time we thought we were getting good at that, that's when the plug got pulled on that market, no pun intended. So we had some experience when the next wave of EVs came around, 2010, 2012, around then. We were ready for it. So we still had some charging infrastructure that had been deployed. We just had to upgrade the charger from the old inductive paddle type to the new style. And at the time I was working at UC Davis and I had a loaner pool. Well, my goal has always been the customer can't have a negative experience in a battery electric vehicle or they will never come back. It's just that simple. So to avoid those negative experiences, we had a little kiosk that would just familiarize drivers with battery electric vehicle technology, but more, and we had them in the shared motor pool. So drivers were checking out vehicles and they were driving natural gas or battery electric. I had a really good programmer that came to me one time and said, Richard, you know what? I can design a program when that person goes to reserve a vehicle, they're going to have to enter their destination, and we will automatically calculate which vehicle will meet their needs. And if they can do it safely in a battery electric vehicle, that's what we're going to reserve for them. All that was done automatically. And what we found is, and the driver, of course, would accept it. We wouldn't stick them in an electric vehicle if they didn't want it. But it gave them confidence that, you know, hey, I put in my data in the machine. And this is before GPS was like widely in use. They got a reassurance that, there was a program that checked and you can drive this vehicle. And then the other thing tactic I use that works very effectively, and this is how we added to the fleet at the city of Oakland. Beyond those first 4 battery electric vehicles, I continued to buy them. I'd wait for a good opportunity when the CVRP had the kickers. And I think BAAQMD or you guys aren't BAAQMD anymore. The Air District would offer some incentive funding. So we're buying battery electric Leafs for like, I don't know, 10,000, 12,000 after the rebates. Got to buy them, but I don't necessarily have drivers. So we would put those in the loaner pool first. And that's when a driver brings in their gas or diesel vehicle for service or repair. We put them in a loaner vehicle, just kind of like a enterprise rent-a-car, but we give them the battery electric and we educate them on it. And they're not going far. They're not going to be going out for a week. They're going to come back in hours or that next day or something. We wanted to get them behind the wheel. And we found that was also very effective where drivers wouldn't normally operate that vehicle. They get a chance. And as the operators appreciated it, we would make those long-term assignments. Well, you like it? Great. We can assign you that car. The other piece of that puzzle is you make the other choice, your oldest vehicle in the fleet. So I had some like 1994 Tauruses at the time we were deploying 2014 Nissan Leafs, and a driver comes to me and says, you know what, my car, the engine's blown, they're not going to fix it. I need a new vehicle. I said, okay, here's your choice. Do you want this nice new 2014 or do you want this old 1994 Taurus? 9 times out of 10, the driver's going to take the new battery electric vehicle. It's just human nature. So that's some of the strategies I've used. They work pretty good. And being the fleet manager and then having the fleet manager report to me makes a huge difference. And having the support of leadership, you just sort of have this culture where we are doing this. This is what we're doing. And the message to the driver is, hey, you can come along and go willingly, or you can continue to drive that old 1994 Ford Taurus till the wheels fall off.
Yeah. No, thanks so much. So it sounds like planning, do the analysis, the figures will show the right choices, and then get folks into these vehicles. So thank you.
Great. No, that's a great question. So we do have a question from Kim for PG&E for you, Youran. He wanted to know for your Rule 29, what is the ultimate source of the funding for that program? Does it actually come from ratepayers? And would you think of that as a forcing on rates themselves, or does that money come from some other place?
It is ratepayer funded. However, we do need to go through CPUC approval and so on and so forth. They oversee how the funds are being utilized. So it is, but I unfortunately cannot speak to how much of an impact that it's, doing for the upward pressure, or is it ultimately, making the rates go up, right? Our goal, just because it's a very complex side of things, and I am not an expert on that mechanism of that things, but our goal is to get more EVs out and, more EV users are out there, and then EV charging stations along with, data centers and whatnot. There is a mechanism to get that source and then turn that into so that our ultimate residential, so ratepayers, our rates, our leadership's ultimate goal is to lower the rates, right? Because it's just been climbing and climbing and climbing. So That said, please forgive me because I do not know all the nuts and bolts under how this like rates and funding works. But our Rule 29 is ratepayer funded, and our program, the EV Advisory Services, is a mixture of different fundings, but it also includes a low carbon fuel standards that PG&E secures a pool of certain um, amount of money funding from our LTFS so that also gets utilized. So our program itself is a mixture of different fundings, but Rule 29 is, I believe it is mainly ratepayer funded. That's approved by CPUC. So yeah.
No, thank you for clarifying that. We have a question from Dennis, and I think we'll have time for one last question after the Dennis question. He's wondering if you could speak a little bit, this is for any of you, about bidirectionality. And I'm curious if you've been thinking about resiliency and two-way, use of these vehicles in terms of fleets, because it is a large energy supply. So anyone want to comment on that?
I will say that we get inquiries somewhat often about bidirectionality, and we're really just it's not really there yet. So there's some elements from the utility interconnection piece that need to be established that as of now it's like a full-on interconnection agreement, or like kind of like an agreement where you can put power back on the grid. And so the constraints with that make it not that favorable to just an EV charger or a bidirectional EV charger. Second is the technology. Richard, you might have more information than I do, but I only know of like one or two truly bidirectional chargers, and they're in these like very niche applications. So I think school buses, like Alan just said in the chat, school buses are really, really great opportunity use case for bidirectionality, but random vehicles here and there, unless we have like an emergency outage and we say, okay, all the F-150 Lightnings are now our generator, and everybody parks them along this bank and we perfectly coordinate that way. That's an option, but that doesn't seem very realistic to me. So that's generally our attitude about it. I'd love for there to be more technology and more options. I think we're just a little early on that technology.
Yeah, I appreciate that insight as well. This is bidirectional is the future. And so you should be constructing any new stations you're putting in. We actually made sure that we're putting in like 115 L2 chargers. I wanted to do L1, but that's not where the grant funding was. But we did make sure to spec them all as bidirectional charging. We're actually working on a specific project, the REDWDS with Better Fleet, to do some demonstration of the bidirectional charging. And we're also applying for a grant with Lawrence Berkeley to do some experimentation with bidirectional. So future-proof your installations. It's going to be a great option when we get in the future. And I think you're going to start seeing vehicles looked at more as mobile energy storage devices, and you'll see folks that will up-spec their battery pack so they can charge off peak when electricity is super cheap. And I think a school bus is an ideal application because they go out in the morning for a little bit and then they come back and park all day, go out at night for a short amount of time. You'll see school buses with greatly oversized battery packs because they're selling electricity back to the grid at peak times where it makes sense. And you can actually, I don't know if you can zero the cost out altogether, but you could certainly greatly reduce your electric bill. And Youran, I would say on Rule 29, just get in the fleet advisory program, because once you get a connection with PG&E, a very pleasant surprise. It's not, you don't get the answer, well, I don't really know that. That's not my specialty. They're like, you know what, this isn't my role. Let me tap in somebody else. And the next thing you know, there's somebody else from PG&E who's not really working with us. They're giving their 2 cents worth, by the way, in a language that I totally don't understand. So they're speaking stuff. I have no idea what they're talking about. But if you get in the PG&E programs, they will answer all of your questions for you.
I'm excited to see the results of your experimentation, Richard, with bidirectional charging. So that's good. I'm glad you're on the kind of cutting edge of that.
I would like to add a couple things too. And thank you so much, Richard, for shout outs to the PG&E and Rule 29. But yes, we'll do everything we can to get you the answer that you're looking for and resource. And we're currently actively working on V2X. That's a vehicle to anything. That's what we call it. And utilities have like a book length of like acronyms. So yeah, I get you, Richard. Like you may not understand what those engineers and specialists are talking about. But yeah, we are working on it. So it is the future, and we want to be able to provide the resources for customers to utilize the bidirectional, especially to import to the grid too. But right now, like Natalie and Richard both said, the school buses are the most active ones in that era. And again, this is a new technology. So I think there's more to come. Like, remember when LED light bulbs were so expensive, like in thousands, or even the solar panels, right? So I think it's going to be kind of like that evolution that we are going to have to see more available, or there are more people are using it. So then there's going to be more technology that's available. So I'm excited to see the variety of different V2X technologies that come online, and then utilities are going to be ready to kind of be ready for customers to utilize that. So not there yet, but we're working on it. And I hope, the vendors, manufacturers are also working on improving the technology too. So thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists. And if we were in person, we would give you a rousing round of applause. So we'll just do a virtual one. But thank you all so much for your thoughts and contributions. And then, Youran, there is a question from Gerald in the chat. I'm wondering if maybe you could address it in the chat if you have a moment while we move on. But thank you so much. So I'm going to pass it off to James Cho to talk about our next segment, which is the Charging Smart Bay Area cohort. And let me just share my screen again.
Thanks, Wendy. And transition to talking to another program that we've been working on, and members of the EV Council have been participating in. And I'm going to try to be relatively quick because I know we're cutting into your lunchtime, and I also want to leave time for the announcement that Wendy hinted at the beginning about the future of the EV Council. So please stick around. But yeah, so over the past year, and you may remember if you were attended a meeting at the end of last year, that we were mentioning this program called Charging Smart, and this was a program that was out of the Midwest region initially, run by the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, or IREC, and they had received a U.S. Department of Energy grants to expand the program nationally. And so at the time last year, they were just about to expand or beginning that expansion. And so we were able to sort of jump on that initial expansion and get a cohort of 12 jurisdictions in the Bay Area who wanted to participate in this program. So this program is a free technical assistance program that helps local governments take a bunch of actions to facilitate EV adoption in their communities. So this has been especially important in this period where, as people keep mentioning, the funding has been cut or shrunk for EV incentives and to install chargers. But the way forward that a lot of folks are talking about is that we should be prepared, taking this time to prepare um, and facilitate local actions that can accelerate EV adoption and charging infrastructure deployment, even in this period, or prepare for those future funding opportunities. And there's a lot that the cities and counties can take action on, whether it is like what we were just talking about with the panel, transforming their own fleet vehicles, or it's educating their residents and businesses about EVs and e-bikes and other clean mobility options and charging options. Whether cities and counties want to install public chargers in their parking structures and or at the curb. Or probably really importantly right now, is to adopt regulations and processes that speed up the installation of chargers. And so there's all sorts of actions that local cities and counties can take during this time. And so we put out this call last year. You may remember that. And yes, we had 12 cities and counties participate from March to November, and they got assistance from a bunch of technical assistance experts. Met monthly with this cohort to exchange ideas, common challenges, work through those challenges, get presentations, including from folks from PG&E and other experts. And then they had access to office hours with the technical experts to ask their questions. So it was a lot of work and over a very short amount of time. And so these 12 jurisdictions participated and did a ton of work to get to the Charging Smart designations. And so if you flip to the next slide. So through Charging Smarts, jurisdictions can be awarded bronze, silver, or gold designations depending on the types and number of actions that they take or can take. And so all 12 of our jurisdictions not only got designated, but exceeded, the bronze level, and we're all awarded silver and gold designations. Which I think exceeded what was pretty typical for other cohorts around the country. And so listed here are the cities and towns that received designations and what they got. So Fairfax, Fremont, City of Napa, Palo Alto, Pinole, Santa Rosa, City of Sonoma, Sunnyvale, Walnut Creek, and Windsor. And then we also had the counties of Contra Costa and San Mateo also received designations. So it was a huge effort. Took a lot of staff time to coordinate within their cities and counties, and then also to take some actions and record what they did. And so I wanted to also give an opportunity to hear directly from some of the participants. So we have two of the participants who can share sort of what was the experience like and what was some of the value of participating. So I'm going to pass it first to Olivia from the city of Palo Alto to share her experience.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to share Palo Alto's experience in the Charging Smart program. The city of Palo Alto, like you just saw, did get our gold designation, so pat our own back there. I do want to provide a little more context on who Palo Alto is, because we are quite unique. We have a population of 67,000 residents, with 1 in 4 households owning an EV. And we also operate and own our utility services, including gas, water, electricity, stormwater, wastewater, and we do have a new pilot area for dark fiber as well. And so the fact that we own our own utilities allows us a lot of flexibility with our electrification programs. In-house, we run various electrification programs for our residents, multifamily, and commercial businesses, and that does include offering rebates and incentives for EV chargers. And we also regularly host workshops, EV expos, and webinars to support EV adoption in our community. That being said, when going into Charging Smart, we had a lot of the criteria already, and what it provided for us at that point was a better insight of what we're currently doing to support EV adoption and how we can better, one, document what we're doing and also improve on our current program and processes. Just for a couple examples that I have, it really helped us provide clear, better practices around our zoning and permitting. This is something we probably hadn't taken a look at in a while, so it was extremely helpful in understanding our current practices and how we can make improvements, and specifically more of our permitting. We also looked very closely at our permit fees, and we kind of realized after speaking with the cohort that our fees were actually quite higher compared to fellow cities and municipalities. So it kind of brewed a conversation internally here at Palo Alto, and we're now doing an internal analysis of our permits and working with our planning folks to possibly lower the fees and then provide some type of incentive or subsidy to support projects that have higher permit fees, which again just becomes another barrier. And also through the Charging Smart, it really allowed my small team that have here that I work with daily to kind of branch out and work with other city departments who we typically don't work very closely with. It allowed for really great collaboration and frankly building stronger relationships, which is extremely important when you're trying to achieve these large goals like EV adoption. And it takes a village. So that was also a really great benefit of the program. And also the collaboration, like what was mentioned before, through the cohort, everyone was extremely supportive. I've learned a lot through them. So really appreciative of that. And then lastly, it's nice to see our efforts recognized. Palo Alto has been doing a lot towards EV adoption and EV charging for a while, and this designation is just something we have under our belt. We've made a lot of PR announcements to city council and public at this point. So it's just a really great accomplishment that we can be proud of. And so what's next for Palo Alto? We definitely want to continue to expand our multifamily charging access. And then also, like I spoke on, is streamlining permitting and the zoning processes, hopefully lowering those EV charging installation permits. And then we just want to continue the momentum we have with the collaboration with other city departments and those in our cohort. And so this designation, it's not the end, it was a foundation, and we're really excited to what's next. And yeah, so if you have any questions, I'll be here and I can also provide some information in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Olivia. And then Deborah from the city of Napa.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So the city of Napa is about 80,000 people. We're up in the North Bay. Unlike Palo Alto, we do not own or operate any of our utilities. So we work with PG&E and RCCA, which is MCE, to work on programs like this. But similarly to Olivia, we got some great value out of participating in the cohort. The first was really focusing the efforts of EV actions by breaking them into the 6 categories, which we found really valuable, and working with the technical assistance team through IREC. They really kept us focused over such a short and a kind of concentrated project time. So that was really helpful. We also, I think, developed a lot of internal relationships across departments. And when I say we, I actually mean me, because I'm the only person working on this here, but it really helped work. I'm in the city manager's office, but it helped me create relationships with both planning and public works, which are the other departments that are really focused on different EV items, including permitting and programming and our EV fleet as well. And then, as Olivia also said, the collaboration across the jurisdictions was really helpful. So I think it was a really interesting group that we had, where we had some really large counties, we had big cities and small cities, and everyone was in a different stage of development. And so really, the program was really good at meeting each jurisdiction where they were and then kind of pushing them forward from there. And I do have to note, as I do every time, we're one measure away from gold. So we're hoping that we're still able to meet that a little later next year. And that is because we're working with MTC on the fleet technical assistance program. So once that's done, we will qualify for gold through the Charging Smart. So yes, for us, it really has helped kind of define our next steps and define focus areas where we can make progress over the next year or so in electric vehicles. So we're excited to see what else we can do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. And yes, Deborah, so close soon. We're going to get you up to gold in no time. But yeah, I mean, hopefully everyone can hear sort of the dedication and sort of the excitement that came around this, because initially there's no attachment of money, but it was more like getting folks together and getting them collaborating. And so both externally and internal collaboration that occurred, and sort of this momentum that has started, because a lot of jurisdictions, it's 1 or 2 staff members who are working solo, and it can feel very sort of isolating. And so I think this was a great opportunity. So thank you so much to you both and to all of our 12 jurisdictions. The unfortunate piece is that I mentioned IREC was being funded through a DOE grant. That funding was part of the cuts that happened at the beginning of the shutdown. And so there's uncertainty around the future of the program. But we at MTC are going to continue looking at this because this aligns with some of the initiatives that we're trying to support through our transportation electrification programs. And so we want to support our local jurisdictions to continue this type of work and do all that will help sort of accelerate this in their communities. So thank you so much. And then I will pass it off to Kaylee at the Air District.
Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylee Mercado. I'm a grant specialist with the Air District, and it's been my pleasure to be part of the team that manages the EV Council, along with James from MTC and the facilitator team from Actera and Cool the Earth. And in the 4 years that I've worked with the EV Council, I've really appreciated getting to know so many of the members and seeing your commitment to advancing vehicle electrification. So we wanted to share with you all that starting in 2026, the Air District and MTC will be passing the torch to Actera to continue the full management of the EV Council. Actera has already shown its ability to carry out the facilitation role so well over the last 3 years, and we are looking forward to seeing how the EV Council stakeholder community continues to evolve and succeed under Actera's direct leadership. Meetings will continue as before, so there will be very little change in this transition. And I wanted to invite Actera's Executive Director, Lauren Weston, to add some more details about what's next.
Thanks, Kaylee. I am Lauren Weston, the Executive Director of Actera Action for Healthy Planet. I've been here since 2019. And I want to just share a lot of gratitude for both the Air District and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission for the shared vision and help in making EV Council what it is today. You've given all of us wonderful guidance and leadership for well over a decade now with this program and this coalition of amazing organizations and people. And Actera is thrilled to be continuing along this path that you all have established. So what's coming in 2026? First, we want to draw your attention to the sign up form. As the Air District will no longer be sending out communications, you absolutely must opt into the new email system to remain members of the EV Council. This is a non-negotiable, so please make sure you take advantage of the sign up. This is also a moment to think about what kinds of opportunities you want to see for the EV Council in 2026 and beyond. If there are any services or priorities you care about, we want to know about it. So when you go to the link, which you see on the screen there, you can see the QR code. Please tell us what you most value and want to see continued. When I think back to the most memorable parts of the EV Coordinating Council, I'm really impressed by the conversations that take place at our breakouts, particularly at the one we had in June during our regional collaboration. That gathering was so inspirational, and why we get together and learn from each other was just perfectly on display. This is how we continue to move the needle on EV adoption and charging infrastructure. I'm really excited to continue the momentum into the new year and to continue offering support for EV collaboration across the Bay Area, especially now, these uncertain times we all find ourselves in. So I'm grateful that Actera has the space and ability to maintain this work in its new unfunded format. So the bottom line is, please sign up to be a member. We will go ahead and add the sign up link to the chat. Please take a moment to click on it right now if you can and complete it before we all say goodbye today. And in the meantime, while we give everyone a minute for that, does anyone have any questions about the transition? You're welcome to raise a hand, put it in chat, and Kaylee and I are both here to answer questions. And now I'm going to the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much to both you and Kaylee for describing the transition. I also wanted to give a huge shout out to Kathy and Carlene from Cool the Earth, who've been our amazing co-facilitators. Really impressed by the work that they did for the working groups. So yeah, kudos to all the groups. Yeah, please go ahead and click on that link in the chat, and it will be a very brief survey. The next EV Council meeting will be in the early spring of 2026, so we will keep you all posted on that. We'll probably try to continue the quarterly meeting cycle. It seems like that works well for most. So yeah, stay tuned. Meanwhile, I'm going to stop the share, and this is a good time to do roundtable updates. So if you have an announcement, please raise your hand and I will call on you. And please keep your questions about the transition coming in the chat as well. Thanks. Anyone for a roundtable announcement today? Maybe we stunned you all with the announcement.
I can put my email in the chat too. If anyone has questions, you are welcome to reach out to me or Wendy if anything comes up for you after the meeting today.
That's a great idea. And we will save the chat, and we will be providing both a recording of the meeting as well as some resources and things for you all. So yeah, not to worry.
Will there be a way for folks, because we know we have a lot more members who are not here in this meeting right now, for folks to get the word out or forward anything for folks to sign in on?
Yeah, do you want to answer that, Kaylee?
Yeah, so we'll have our typical follow-up email to this meeting, and so along with our regular meeting resources, we will also have the announcement in that email and another link to the new sign up and the survey.
Yeah, and I think we're going to try to track everyone down. So if you don't respond to us, so that's an incentive to respond earlier so that you don't get lots and lots of subsequent emails of us tracking you down. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your participation today. It was great to see you, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year. I hope everyone has a safe and happy holiday season, and keep on keeping on with the EV adoption and all the progress you're making. Thank you so much, and see you soon. All right. I'm going to end recording.